Thank you for joining us again and welcome back to Earth Explorer. I want to thank you for joining from wherever you're joining us from around the world. It is important for us to continue to dive into this geostrategic, unequal partnership that African nations found themselves with the global North partners. I'm talking in this case today, I want to explore why the United States of America, despite losing leverage across the continent of Africa, not seeing African countries as equal from the strategic point of view from a number of areas, not just with this administration, but in previous administration, in the Joe Biden period. But I want to explore South Africa, one of the major economies in the continent of Africa and the most strategically placed countries across the region. We have fantastic nations who are engaging and making strategic fundamental decisions regards to their survival across the Sahel. But more importantly, big players like Egypt, South Africa, Ghana, and the rest from the strategic point of view have come to realize that the global North partners, especially the United States of America, does not represent what it used to be. For that reason, these nations are breaking away and looking for more strategic coordination, partnership, collaboration, investment with a whole lot of other partners that provide them what they are looking for. So smash the like button if you feel the United States of America is losing soft power in the continent of Africa. Not to talk more on a whole lot of issues, South Africa and the United States of America's relationship has seen nosedive in the past couple of decades. And more importantly, you all know, not just going to the appetite period, but during the Joe Biden administration, the country came under tremendous pressure. And more importantly, with the current administration under Mr. Trump, it has taken an incredible nosedive. So to go into a little bit of perspective, thanks to CGTN Africa, who gave us an insight with regards to how this relationship has deteriorated in the past couple of months. Let's play this clip.
Relations between the United States and South Africa have been strained in the past few years, stemming from major departures from the country's foreign policies. In 2022, during the Biden administration, the United States accused South Africa of covertly supplying weapons to Russia for its conflict with Ukraine, an accusation Pretoria denies. Last year, South Africa filed a case at the International Court of Justice accusing Israel of genocide in Gaza. The US, Israel's key ally, condemned the move as anti-Western. In February of this year, the new US President Donald Trump signed an executive order prioritizing refugee status for white South African farmers, citing racial persecution and the land reform laws.
So you can imagine where this relationship has been in the past 4 years during the Joe Biden administration. That took a nosedive. South Africa's relationship with the country of Russia and China has come under tremendous questioning, which is unheard of, never before heard. Keeps Egypt aside, keep the country of Ghana aside, Tanzania and the Sahaelian countries, looking at Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, that have kicked out the United States of America, especially the country of Niger, from its own territory as a result of the United States of America's own condescending approach regards to how we conduct geopolitical business in that country of the continent of Africa. More importantly, the drone base, the $100 million drone base in the city of Algiers in the country of Niger, has been dismantled, and the United States of America at the moment is looking for other strategic partners across the region, in the coast across the continent of Africa. So going back to this particular very important perspective that CGTN has pointed out, the United States of America, not just going back to the Russian-Ukrainian war, has picked up the country of South Africa in a number of areas. We've seen US's own senators came up in a number of times to question South Africa's own decision, a sovereign country in the continent of Africa. And you're asking them who to work with and who not to work with. This is the problem, that a number of countries across the region have been questioning the United States of America's own behavior, looking at why it wants to export democracy from a number of areas. South Africa is a democratic nation, and more importantly, these nations need to diversify its economy, because the challenges that the country of South Africa is facing at the moment, the emerging middle class, the burgeoning population, challenges at home, crime issues and security challenges, these countries need to move forward and look for other alternatives, because the United States of America is using a lot of leverage to subjugate these nations across the region from the geostrategic point of view. So the issue talking about why South Africa and the United States of America, not just talking about the issue with Israel. And don't forget, South Africa is the only nation across the continent of Africa that has stood up to the United States of America and remind the U.S. where it stands on global issues, not just the Russian-Ukrainian war or the Israel's own challenge with Gaza, the Palestinian problem. It is important to know that South Africa, these problems are coming up. It's not just being manufactured from anywhere. It's coming as a result of the country's own position that the United States thinks it should be able to silence this nation. Because if you can silence a major player like South Africa in the continent of Africa, then there's going to be a problem, because countries like Nigeria, who are the darling to an extent of the United States of America, who are feeling the pinch at the moment from the migration issues, are beginning to realize that the United States cannot offer what the continent of Africa have been aiming for the past couple of decades. Let's roll this clip from CGTN.
Widespread cuts to U.S. foreign aid across the board, the Trump administration froze all aid going to South Africa. As the diplomatic row continues, the effects of the funding freeze are setting in. The South African Health Ministry estimates that approximately 900,000 South Africans living with HIV have had or will have their treatments affected. In the immediate wake of this funding freeze and executive order, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio expelled South Africa's ambassador Ibrahim Russo, calling him a racist, a move Pretoria called regrettable.
So you can see where this relationship has gotten to, right? My apologies, where I'm filming, the sun is really coming in my eye, so just ignore that. So you can imagine where this relationship is going. And as you can see, talking about cutting of aid, not just with the country of South Africa, but the United States of America's administration's behavior towards the continent of Africa has impacted a number of nations. So, like I said, geopolitics is an interesting game, and Africa must stand up and start making choices that are not popular. Again, the United States of America's own collaboration with the country of South Africa is an indication. All African nations are watching it very closely. I'm not saying that it's only the continent of Africa that's suffering from the particular aid cord or support from a whole lot of areas, but every country has its own unique perspective. As you all see, the United States has continuously downplayed South Africa's role in the global engagement in a number of areas, not just with the Russian-Ukrainian war. South Africa led a delegation to the country of Russia and Ukraine, where the president then, Mr. Ramaphosa, was still now, and other African leaders, Mr. Sall from Senegal, ex-leader, they went to take that particular step to the countries of Russia and Ukraine. But they were cool, a begging mission, because they were coming from the continent of Africa, of which the current leader of the United States of America, Mr. Donald Trump, has embarrassed himself, said he was going to solve the Russia-Ukrainian war in 24 hours. But no one gave the continent of Africa's credit. G20 summit of heads of finance that was headed in the United States, that the United States is going to be taking over soon. As a result, at the moment, South Africa is leading that particular body. It's being played by the United States to become insignificant, because whether you like it or not, South Africa hosted a very successful G20 summit. As we all know that this particular relationship is going down the drain, and the current Secretary of State, like the video said about talking about expelling South Africa's representative at the United States of America, South Africa called it regrettable. And the way that Mr. Rasu was expelled in the United States of America, it was shameful, because that's what South Africans call megaphone diplomacy. This is unbelievable on how the United States of America continue to deal with a number of countries, in this case South Africa, and more importantly, looking at what Mr. Trump recently said, South Africa is doing some bad things, they are committing genocide. All of these that were proven to be lies telling And that's the reason why the country of South Africa, don't get me wrong, South Africa have its own challenges and difficulties, but they are standing up to the United States of America, reminding the US that it won't be business as usual. We are a country of need, but we do have some areas where we also can make our voice heard. And these issues, we're not going to wait. We've heard the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Lamola, talked about these issues. So remember, South Africa hasn't said they don't want to work with the United States of America. They want to, but again, as a BRICS member, an influential member in BRICS, they want to have their voices heard and continue to look for other alternatives. So you cannot cage South Africa in a box, a major and influential economy in the continent of Africa. If you can hold down, pin down South Africa, what about countries like Malawi, Lesotho? So this is where the question stands. So the geostrategic partnership and collaboration is not just against the Sahelian nations, but big players like South Africa. That's the reason why this relationship at the moment doesn't sit well from the eyes of analysts, consultants, experts across the continent of Africa. Let's play this clip.
In April, the Trump administration imposed 31% tariffs on South African metals and cars, nullifying the benefits of a crucial trade pact known as the African Growth and Opportunity Act. A month later, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa visited Washington in an attempt to reset their relations. Trump ambushed Ramaphosa with a video alleging white farmer genocide, derailing efforts for a settlement. No joint statement was issued.
I think it is clear because the meeting in Washington, like I said, this meeting, looking at the recent meeting that Mr. Trump held with African leaders, basically selecting a handful of countries, a continent with over 50 nations, and then you pick just a few, just the classic divide and rule that we have seen in the global politics when African nations are concerned. So this was a shameful meeting in the United States of America, and the U.S. must refine its collaboration with the countries across the region because Russia, China, and Turkey, emerging Turkey, and some fringe powers across the European Union, again, they're beginning to engage the continent of Africa because, like the United States sees the continent of Africa as a problem to be solved, these other nations see Africa as an opportunity to be grabbed. So the relationship between the country of the United States of America and that of South Africa is exposing a lot of issues. It's exposing where the U.S. stands. If the United States of America does not perceive China and Russia as being using soft power influence in the continent of Africa, it will not react. It has a reactionary foreign policy that has failed in a number of areas. So the behavior of the United States towards the country of South Africa, not just looking at the videos, not talking about the comments made by the leader of the United States and the foreign minister, the Secretary of State, Mr. Marco Rubio, it goes down to tell where African nations at this particular time and a critical moment in their history, the approach, the behavior, the condescending manner, and the perception, the sticking of your own nose into the private issues of an emerging economy in the continent of Africa, a big player in the continent of Africa, it tells the continent's own nationals, citizens, global experts that there is an underlying issue as a result of the survival of the continent, because if it's not about Russian-Ukrainian issue or the Sahelian challenges, that's why we see Mali, Burkina Faso have break away from the status quo. They are moving forward to make alternative decisions that doesn't sit well with other partners. So this is not going to go well regards to this relationship, and especially looking at the current tariffs that the United States of America has imposed the country of South Africa. And more importantly, I've warned the continent of African nations to wake up and embrace the African continental future, because the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, which has been one of the tools used by the United States of America to sideline a number of countries across the region, it's not working at the moment. And like I said, it's on life support, and this is not going to work. So Africa should go away from the AGOA and start rebuilding new partnerships, whether with China, whether with the European Union in a number of areas, looking at emerging Turkey, Middle Eastern partners, but more importantly, revive the African continental future, because that's the only lifeline at the moment. Let's grow this clip.
The Americans continue to snub South Africa's G20 presidency, with officials staying away from key meetings in the host country. With the African Growth and Opportunity Act set to expire in September and no reconciliation in sight, analysts warn this rupture could destabilize all of Southern Africa. Meanwhile, they agree that the American economy could also be hurt from a protracted standoff. For now, both nations seem locked in a vicious cycle of retaliation, with ordinary citizens paying the price. Daniel Arab Moy, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
So it is clear where the relationship stands. The highlighted points by CGTN journalists is just an indication. This issue is more than what you see. Going back to how the United States of America's own senators, even in the Joe Biden administration, have always singled out South Africa to be punished as a result of its own geostrategic influence, looking at its collaboration and investment with the country of China, and looking at South Africa's relationship with the country of Russia, South Africa's own global presence, South Africa's own accusation that they are doing some bad things, and South Africa. So you see, South Africans have come to the point to realize that the United States of America, it's not a nation that could provide them the alternative that they are looking for. So all these back and forth and this conversation sits nowhere in the country of South Africa. South Africa understand that they have a challenge. They have issues. They are not 100%. But again, if one of the single most powerful nations in the world at the moment can go rogue regards to trade and imposing unnecessary tariffs to some countries and making some unreasonable comments, looking at questioning countries like Liberia's president's own language and comment from the geostrategic discussion, which is what we do here, does not sit well in the continent of Africa. So that is embarrassing from a whole lot of areas. So South Africans have decided to pick up themselves and start walking slowly to move on and ensuring that it is about time for the continent of Africa to move swiftly and build systems in place that can enable them find their own foothold. South Africa's example with the country of the United States of America from the geostrategic collaboration part, it's been a failure of the United States of America's own influence and talking about soft power in the continent of Africa. That's the reason why China, Russia, emerging Turkey, and some fringe powers across the European Union that you don't agree with will continue to have an inroad. But again, the country of South Africa and African nations to revive the African continental free trade area, because it is clear where issues stand at the moment. I want to thank you for watching. Smash the like button and share the video. Let me know what you think with regards to the current Africa's own position, the global perspective. And if you are joining us for the first time, we encourage you to smash the like button, join our Patreon, and we will continue to walk alongside you to provide you the global African own perspective. For now, have a wonderful day. I will be joining you soon. Bye-bye.